What up, my nerds? Welcome back to the Nerd Herd. What if I told you AMD is quietly making one of its brand new graphics cards disappear? This isn't because of a flaw, a defect, or some big performance problem. It's a deliberate, calculated business decision. The card in question, the Radeon RX 9070. And it's getting harder to find day by day. It's not because gamers don't want it, it's because its slightly more expensive sibling, the RX 9070 XT, is a whole lot more profitable. AMD is making a choice, and that choice has everything to do with its bottom line, forcing a tough decision on anyone looking to upgrade. The reason has nothing to do with the silicon chip at the heart of the GPU, and everything to do with the memory chips surrounding it. We're going to break down the supply chain pressure, the simple math that explains the whole situation, and what it means for you, the person who just wants to play a new graphics card without the feeling like you're being played. When AMD rolled out its RDNA 4-based Radeon RX 9000 series in early 2025, two cards were meant to be new champions of 1440p gaming: the Radeon RX 9070 and the Radeon RX 9070 XT. The strategy seemed crystal clear, offering great option with the standard 9070 and a slightly more powerful version with the 9070 XT for those willing to spend a little extra cash. The price tag seemed to back this up though. The RX 9070 landed with an MSRP of $549, while the 9070 XT was set to about $599, a simple $50 gap for just a bit more horsepower. On paper, this gives gamers a choice. If you're crushing it with the 1440p, the 9070 might be perfect sweet spot. If you want a little bit more confidence for that 4K gaming, well, an extra 50 bucks seemed like a no-brainer, right? But then a strange thing started to happen. While the more expensive 9070 XT became the star of reviews and a mainstay on retail sites, the cheaper RX 9070 just started to fade away. Availability dried up. It became this niche product that was almost impossible to find in stock compared to its sibling. And this wasn't a case of a product failing to sell. Its lower price point made it a really attractive option. So why would AMD and its partners let the more affordable card just wither on the vine? Why launch two products so close in price only to champion the more expensive one? The answer isn't about performance. It's about a component that has suddenly become one of the most expensive parts of modern GPU. The real problem here is the single factor driving AMD's entire strategy. It's VRAM. Both the Radeon RX 9070 and the 9070 XT are built with 16 gigabytes of GDDR6 memory. The generous VRAM capacity is a huge selling point, especially at games that get a little bit more demanding, but that massive strength has turned into a massive financial headache. You see, in the last year, the cost of the GDDR memory has absolutely exploded. We're in the middle of a full-blown memory crisis, driven by a perfect storm of factors. The insatiable demand for memory in the AI data center world is a huge part of it. But production shifts and supply issues are causing prices for older memory types like the GDDR6 to surge like crazy. Now, according to the market analysis from TrendForce, GDDR6 prices were projected to see a massive increase of, we're talking 28 to 33% of suppliers shifting its focus to the newer GDDR6 standard. The price surge completely changes the math of building a graphics card. Historically now, the GPU die itself was the most expensive part. Now, for a lot of cards, the memory chips can be a massive slice of the total cost. Reports from late 2025 showed that the cost of a single 16 gigabit memory module, the kind that's used in GPUs, had already jumped from $5.50 to over $20. And here is where the problem lies for the poor RX 9070. Both the 9070 XT uses the same 16 gigabyte DDR6 configuration, meaning they both need the same exact number of expensive memory chips. With memory prices going through the roof, the manufacturing cost for both cards has become nearly identical. The tiny cost of the difference between the slightly cut down Navi 48 XT silicon in the 9070 and the full Navi 48 XT in the 97 XT is now completely dwarfed by the massive sheer cost of their VRAM. For board partners like Asus, Sapphire, and PowerColor, they're basically paying the same amount of money to build two different products. This is where the business reality gets brutally simple. Put yourself in the shoes of a board partner for a second. I know, right? You have two products you can make. Product A is the RX 9070. Let's say it costs you 480 bucks to build, mostly because of the pricey memory. Its MSRP is $549 after you factor in distribution, marketing, retailer's cut. Your profit margin is razor thin. Now let's go to product B, the RX 9070 XT. It costs maybe a few more bucks to make, let's say 490 bucks for the better GPU die, but its MSRP is $599. That extra $50 on the price tag, when the build cost is almost the same, represents a significantly larger margin. Now, which one are you going to make? It's not a tough choice, in my opinion. As a board member, right? You'd push almost all of your production lines to the RX 9070 XT. That small $50 price difference for us creates a giant profitability chasm for them. And that's exactly what's happening here. AMD and its partners aren't ditching the 9070 out of spite, they're just following the money. The current market makers producing the lower margin RX 9070 is just a bad business decision. This strategy actually mirrors what we've seen from Nvidia, which has also reportedly been prioritizing products based on profit generated per gigabyte of memory. In an era of expensive VRAM, the GPUs that can command a higher price for the same memory capacity are the ones that get made. The RX 9070 XT is simply a more efficient way for AMD to sell 16 gigabytes of that increasingly expensive GDDR6. There's an interview that adds important context to everything we've been talking about, and this time it comes directly from AMD themselves. In a recent conversation with PCWorld, AMD executives were asking about the claims that Intel is still selling what they described as old silicon, and more importantly, what's AMD's own strategy like moving forward, especially in portable and handheld devices. AMD's response is revealing, not because of what they criticize, but because of what they chose to emphasize. Instead of defending specifics of products or getting dragged into a comparison war, AMD reframes the entire discussion. They make it very clear that their focus isn't on recycling older designs or pushing the same silicon into every possible form factor. Their emphasis is on purpose-built chips, silicon designed and manufactured for very specific needs. When AMD talks about the portable and handheld segment, they reportedly come back to the same priorities: battery life, performance per watt, consistent frame pacing, and overall efficiency, not raw peak power. In their own words, they're not trying to win on brute force. They're trying to win on the design intent. And that distinction matters because it tells us AMD is thinking internally. They're not just asking, can this chip exist? They're asking, does this chip justify its cost, its power envelope, and its term role for the lineup, right? AMD explicitly states that modern portable consoles and devices don't want to be scaled down to desktop parts or repurposed designs. They want silicon that is built specifically for that use case from the ground up. And that philosophy doesn't stop at handhelds. It applies to everything they ship. When they combine that mindset with rising memory costs and increasingly constrained supply, a very clear pattern starts to emerge. AMD is prioritizing products where the design, the margins, and the lower term strategy all align. That's why the emphasis that they can deliver long battery life, good content fidelity, and high frame rates, they all can do that very well. Efficiency is no longer a secondary metric. It is the metric. And when efficiency and margin become the primary filters, not every SKU survives equally. Products that sit in the middle, especially with those tight pricing and expensive components, become just harder to justify at a scale. The interview doesn't accuse competitors. It doesn't announce cancellations, but it quietly explains why AMD would choose to focus on certain products over others. AMD isn't telling us what they're removing. They're telling us what they're building around. And when a company tells you what it's prioritizing, efficiency, purpose-built silicon, and designs that justify their cost, it also tells you which products are most vulnerable when market conditions tighten. This isn't a reaction, it's a strategy. So is AMD just creating manufactured scarcity to force everyone towards a more expensive card? The answer? It's kind of, but it's not that simple. Reports suggest AMD isn't killing the standard RX 9070 entirely. Instead, it's just dramatically cutting its production and shifting those resources to the XT model to match lower demand and, you guessed it, prioritize profits. It's a less of a conspiracy and more of a direct response to the market. Demand for the non-XT model actually fell because the performance gap made the XT feel like a much better deal for a pretty small price jump. From a corporate point of view, this is logical and an unavoidable move. Why keep pushing a product that's barely profitable when you can make a nearly identical one that keeps your business healthy? David McAfee, an AMD exec, has said the company has a very long-term deep partnerships with all the DRAM manufacturers to ensure they can meet supply needs. He seemed confident in these partnerships and it would prevent a total shortage of the Radeon GPUs for gamers. McAfee acknowledged the reality of rising costs, but doubled down on AMD's core mission. He stated, "Our values proposition with Radeon is delivering end users more for their money. Even in the spite of increasing component costs, we're going to drive that as aggressively as possible as we can." But he also admitted, "I'm not going to say prices across all the components will remain flat." And that's the tightrope AMD is walking. On one hand, they're telling gamers that cards will be available. On the other, the brutal economics of memory costs are forcing them to guide consumers towards a higher price point. The RX 9070 isn't vanishing because it's a bad card. It's vanishing because it's not a profitable enough card in today's market. So what does that all corporate strategy mean to your wallet? The most obvious impact is the death of choice. That $550 price point, $549 price point, which could have been a fantastic new standard for mainstream performance, had it been effectively erased from the market. If you're looking for a new RDNA 4 card in this performance tier, your starting price is now $599 for the RX 9070 XT. But the story doesn't stop at MSRP because the RX 9070 XT is now the main event. Demand is focused and board partners are pricing their custom models accordingly. Since AMD didn't release a mass market reference design, you have to buy from partners who add their own beefy coolers and factory overclocks. These premium features combined with high demand have led to retail prices that are way higher than the suggested $599. We're seeing a custom RX 9070 XT model selling for premiums of up to $200 or more. For example, a high-end overclock card like the ASRock RX 97 XT Tachi I saw on Newegg today for $819. That's a staggering $220 above AMD's suggested price. This turns a card that was supposed to be $600 into an $800 card. What is happening? The whole situation puts gamers in a tough spot. Yeah, the promise of next-gen GPUs at a reasonable price is being undermined by supply chain math that's totally out of control. Prioritizing the XT, while logical for business, has directly raised the cost of entry for everyone by simply removing the cheaper alternative. Before we dig into whether the RX 9070 XT is still a good buy despite all this, let's take a quick second. If you're finding this breakdown useful for understanding what's really going on with the GPU pricing, maybe smash that subscribe button, smash that like button. I try to track these moves every single day to bring you the analysis you need to build a smarter PC. Your support helps me keep this going and the investigation going. Alright, so you're being shoved towards the more expensive RX 9070 XT. The cheaper option is a ghost, and you're realistically looking at paying $700 or more for a good custom model. The big question is it still a good card for the money? Let's look at what we get. The RX 9070 XT Rockstat Navi 48 XT GPU. It's packing about 4,096 stream processors, 64 ray tracing cores, and 128 AI cores. And of course, that all-important 16 gigabyte of GDDR6 memory on a 256-bit bus. On paper, that's a potent combo. That's a 12.5 bump in cores over the non-XT, plus a higher boost clock. Gives you a real tangible performance lift. In benchmarks, this translates to a consistent 10 to 15% lead over the non-XT, sometimes more. It's a beast at 1440p that can push higher frame rates with all the eye candy. It's a very solid entry for 4K gaming, often hitting that golden 60 frames per second target. When the card launched, it was seen as a huge win for AMD, often beating its direct rival, the NVIDIA RTX 5070, and even snapping at the heels of the more expensive RTX 5070 Ti. So in a vacuum, yes, the RX 9070 XT is an excellent graphics card. The performance is definitely there, and the 16 gigabyte of VRAM gives it its breathing room for the future. The hardware isn't the problem. The problem is the price that you're now forced to pay for it. The value is diminished not because the card is weak, but because the market has stripped away its more affordable brother. While the price is frustrating, the value of the RX 9070 XT isn't just about its launch day price. AMD is playing the long game here, and its ace in the hole is software. specifically Fidelity FX Super Resolution or FSR. The latest version of FSR4 is a huge leap forward. FS4 uses a much more sophisticated machine learning assisted upscaling algorithm. In English, that means better image quality, clear depths, clear details, and less of that shimmering you see in older tech. It's designed to work incredibly well at 1440p and 4K, which pairs perfectly with that RX 9070 XT's hardware. You get higher frame rates without making your game look like a blurry mess, right? But AMD's secret sauce goes even deeper. Features like FSR Radiance caching are designed to improve ray tracing performances through smart software, not just raw hardware power. This is crucial for the longevity of the RX 9070 XT. It means the card should continue to get better and more efficient over time, gaining performance in future games through driver optimizations. This approach helps a card age gracefully. A GPU that can gain new tricks through software holds its value way better than one that's set in stone on day one. When you buy an RX 9070 XT, you're not just buying the hardware as it is today, you're investing in a platform that AMD is committed to improving for years to come. This doesn't erase the sting of a higher price, but it adds an important one, often overlooked, layer to the card's overall value. So where does this leave us? AMD's decision to push the Radeon RX 9070 XT isn't some evil corporate plot. It's a story of cold, hard economic reality, facing with soaring memory costs that made the RX 9070 and the 9070 XT basically the same to build. The company made the logical business choice, focus of the one with the better profit margin. For gamers, the result is undeniably frustrating. A promising, more affordable GPU has been pushed aside, raising the price of entry for everyone in the performance tier. The market is now full of custom XT models with the big price premiums stretching our budgets even further. However, the card at the center of all this, the RX 9070 XT, is still a powerful and compelling piece of tech. Its hardware delivers fantastic performance, and its 16GB of VRAM is great for future proofing. More importantly, AMD's commitment to its software means the card has a long life ahead of it. In the end, AMD is making a bet. That strength of the RX 9070 XT and its software is enough to justify its higher price in such a tough market. It's a business decision first and a consumer-friendly move second. So now I want to hear from you. Is this a smart move by AMD to navigate in such a difficult market, or is this an anti-consumer tactic to hurt us, the gamers? Well, let me know in the comments. Let me know if you like this video, guys. Take care. Nerd Herd out.